Warriors. Congratulations to all of us who had Warriors futures tickets. Now, I got mine plus 550 early in the basketball season. Not nearly as good as some others. Brady Cannon, our own Brady Cannon, had 11-1 pre-flop this year. I took them early, plus 550 this year when the Warriors and the Phoenix Suns were clearly the two best regular season teams in basketball at that point, and it cashes their fourth title in 8 years. Now, I want to make a broader betting point about this, but you'll forgive me, Jeff, if I drift into a little sports talk radio this morning in segment one, because I really believe, and I've how many times on this show have I said the Golden State Warriors are the most beautiful thing in sports? And I really do feel like we ran into a situation here with a lot of bettors. And I got a lot of people all there, you got to tell this person he was wrong. No, we've all been wrong about things before. I do believe generally that this was a case of bettors, perhaps, though, general, bettors plural, who did sort of get too close to the sun when it came to the Warriors. And a lot of people who backed the Celtics were very careful to say, it doesn't mean that I don't think the Warriors are good, I just think the Celtics are better. Yeah, but even in that, there was a sort of tacit disrespect for a dynasty. The details of the game from last night, almost incidental, because it was, sixth verse, same as the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Boston with 22 turnovers. It's really all you need to know. 22 turnovers. They were 1-8 this postseason when committing 16 or more. That's the magic stat of the postseason. Steph with 34 last night, named NBA Finals MVP for the first time in his career. Remember the previous 3 championships for the Warriors. It was Iguodala and 2 from KD. 103-90 was the final score. After a run of 5 consecutive finals in which the Warriors won 3, remember the 2 they lost. One, they won 73 regular season games. The other, KD ruptured his Achilles and Clay blew out his knee. Then they went to the literally bottom of the NBA with the worst record in the NBA after those injuries and a departure from KD, back to the top of the mountain. And how many times on this show have we said, let us appreciate what we are watching for the most beautiful thing in sports? Last night, again, incidental. Celtics led 14-2. You're like, oh, well, how about this? And that was that. The Warriors led by 5 by the end of the first quarter as part of a 35-8 run, part of which was a 21-0 run. The biggest run to 0 in an NBA Finals game in the last 50 years. And you knew at that point, Boston was battling uphill the rest of the night. Boston trailed by as many as 22, got to as close as 8 with over 5 minutes left in the game, but quickly another Warriors tear. And by the time the Warriors got back up in this game by 15, 96-81 late, 15-point lead, out of Curry 3, it was Curry nighty-night running down the court. Steph moved to tears by the end of this. What a dynasty. And I will say this again. Besides the Jordan Pippen Bulls, now we're not talking Bill Russell Celtics from the 60s, but modern day, our lifetime. Besides the Jordan Pippen 6 championship Chicago Bulls, which is a very historically interesting run because it was literally on the backs of 2 guys who just were so different and so much better in their own way than anybody else in basketball at that time. And I am including Scottie Pippen. They're their own thing. Showtime Lakers won 5. The Warriors are right behind that. And I don't think you can argue it. In 2010, the Golden State Warriors drafted Steph Curry with the 7th pick in the draft. Among those drafted before him, Hasheem Thabit by the Memphis Grizzlies at 2, and more famously, perhaps, Johnny Flynn to the Minnesota Timberwolves at 6. And we all had seen Steph at Davidson take Davidson to the Elite 8, so we had some knowledge of him. But when the Warriors took him at 7, as we just mentioned, there were a couple teams that didn't, think highly enough of him, enough to take him over those 2 guys. And immediately, and this is the part in history that will get forgotten, and for those of us who lived in the Bay through these years, it is incumbent upon us to appreciate what we're seeing, and that is why I'm doing this today, which is to say that Steph Curry was riddled and I mean riddled with ankle injuries from year one, to the point in 2010, his very first season, where he, on December 8th, 2020, December 8th of that first rookie year, December 8th of 2010, his rookie year, he rolled his right ankle, just handling the ball on the perimeter in a game against the Spurs, untouched. And we didn't know that was a portent of things to come, but throughout that season, he had trouble with the ankle, led to off-season surgery to help reattach and strengthen the torn ligaments that a year of sprains and tweaks had ravaged. And in the 2011 draft, the Warriors turned around with the 11th pick in that draft and took Michael Thompson's kid, Del Curry's kid one year, and then Michael Thompson's kid the next year, in Klay Thompson out of Washington State at number 11. Picked right before him by the Milwaukee Bucks and immediately traded to Sacramento, the great Jimmer Fredette. Now, I got to admit, when the Warriors took Klay at 11, I was like, or whatever. So it wasn't like I was like predicting greatness for Klay either. And by the way, let's not let recency fool us about Klay. Peak Klay and young Curry, those teams were even better. And I'm talking maybe before KD. So Klay goes with the 11th pick. So the Warriors have these two guards. But the Curry ankle injuries continued that second year, the year after they drafted Klay, the subsequent year to drafting Klay. January 4th, sprain of the ankle. January 4th, 2012 for Curry. Missed nearly 2 weeks with that injury. Returned to play at less than 100% for most of February. And then on March 10th of 2012, his second year, towards the end of that second year, disaster strikes again. He wouldn't play another game that season. He eventually would have to have another surgery to clean out scar tissue and remove loose bodies. We didn't think, and nobody thought, the Bay Area fan base was worried that Steph Curry would never be able to succeed in this league because he'd just be too injury-riddled with his ankles. 3 days after that injury on March 10th, 2012, March 13th, 2012, I would argue is one of the biggest trades, as it has now turned out to be, in the history of the National Basketball Association. Because the Warriors traded Monte Ellis in a 5-player deal. Andrew Bogut came back, among others. But Monte Ellis' removal from the Warriors 3 days after Steph had yet another season-ending ankle injury sent the Warriors fan base into a tizzy. Dr. Bob and I, we were literally on the street talking people down off their, just their heads were ready to explode. How could the Warriors trade Monte Ellis, who was giving them 30-plus points a game, for this kid with all the injuries? The Warriors were geniuses. That trade cleared the way for this to be Steph and Klay's team. Steph specifically. How bad was the Warriors fan base? How bad did they react to the Monte Ellis trade? When Chris Mullins' jersey was retired later that year, owner Joe Lacob was booed lustily because they couldn't believe still that they had traded Ellis. Then in 2012, 35th pick in the draft, Draymond Green, and the rest is history. I could go on, and you know what? I will, Jeff, because people need to appreciate how unbelievable the roster construction of this team, what they've done, 4 titles in 8 years.